There are differences between organic and synthetic, and let's go ahead and talk about those now. So you got your tomato and vegetable food organic. You've got, I don't have it displayed, but I've got a Gard'n Special. I've got a tomato and vegetable in the Fertilome line. Anybody know the difference between a fertilizer in the Fertilome line versus the high yield line? I've got a tomato and vegetable in Fertilome. I've got a tomato and vegetable in high yield, and I have one in Natural Guard. So the difference between the Fertilome and the high yield, there's micro and macronutrients in the Fertilome. There's only micronutrients in the high yield. We're trying to hit that price point. All right, so it's going to be a couple of dollars cheaper. You'll know that customer. Hey, they're not trying to have the best garden ever. They just want, at least they're feeding the plant. And guys, try to call these fertilizers, try to call them foods. Because people think they can skip out on fertilizers. All right, but you feed your kids, you feed your pets, feed your plants. You want to put that on a real big sign, put a Fertilome logo on there? I'll pay for it with co-op dollars. But remind people they've got to feed their plants. All right, so now let's get into the difference between a synthetic and an organic fertilizer. Anybody know the difference between those two?
The organic has the microorganisms.
It's going to have microorganisms in the bag, absolutely. Which one do you think is more readily available to the plant? Which one do you think, if I fertilized it with this that afternoon, it's going to be available to the plant? I hear a couple of different answers here. The synthetic is going to be available to the plant right away. In the form that's in the bag, it's ready for the plant right away. Organic fertilizers have to be broken down by microorganisms before they're readily available to the plant. Used to be a really big problem. It used to take weeks, maybe even a month, and I put a fertilizer down, and a month later the plant starts to take it up. I forgot I fertilized it. I think the product didn't work. That's more like 80s technology. Then they started putting microorganisms in the bag, and fantastic. Now we've shortened that time down to maybe a week. Guys, all of our organic fertilizers, not only do they have mycorrhiza in there, we're going to have archaea in there. And archaea, they used to think archaea were just like mycorrhiza, and they started doing a lot more research on them. About 7 years ago, they put them in their own category, and they said, no, these guys are different. We need to come up with a name, and they named them archaea. Archaea are going to break down that organic fertilizer 3 times faster than typical mycorrhiza. Not only are they going to break it down faster, but they're going to work in more extreme temperatures. They found these on the sides of volcanoes or in Antarctica. They're going to work in colder temperatures, which is what we're interested in, and they're going to work into warmer temperatures, so they're going to work later into the summer. Plus, they're going to do it a lot faster. So you're getting that organic fertilizer into that plant a lot faster than the competition's organic fertilizer. That's an exclusive to us. All right? And once again, these products are only available to the independents, so that's an exclusive to you. All right? Really, really cool thing. I love showing where VPG's got something to set themselves apart from the competition. And you can take that information and you can tell your customer, hey, guess what? I love organic fertilizers as well. The problem has always been it takes a while for it to get into the plant. We fixed that problem. I've been using it myself. I have not seen any difference between my synthetic applications or my organic applications. I've been really, really pleased with it. So, all right, so what's something else? Fruit's about the size of a quarter. What's something else that I want to do that, like the fertilizer, I might be changing it up. It's something we talked about in step 1. What do I want to do a second application of? It's preventing a problem. Second application of calcium nitrate. Guys, we want to try to get those homeowners to do at least 2 applications of calcium nitrate. First one at time of planting, second one roughly whenever the fruit's about the size of a quarter. If they want to do a third application, even better. Even better. All right, so things are going great. Let's say I didn't listen to you. You warned me about blossom end rot. I didn't listen to you. I said, I'm going to make sure and stay up on my watering, all this. I come into you, guys, the bottom half of my tomatoes are rotting. I'm losing half of them. What are you going to sell me? And this is where somebody was saying earlier it was a spray. They were wanting to know the difference between the two. Yeah, the liquid. What's it called? Do you remember the name?
Yield booster.
Yield booster, absolutely. This is where you're going to sell me some yield booster. Guys, yield booster is the treatment for the problem. I've never seen a tomato plant continue to have issues with blossom end rot after using yield booster. It immediately stops that issue. Now, the tomatoes that already have the blossom end rot on them, what should we do?
Pick them off.
Go ahead and pick them off. Stop having that plant waste energy on those bad tomatoes. There's no product I could sell you and you could sell them that's going to get that rot out of that tomato. Now, if it's close to ripening, fantastic. Cut that rot out of there. There's nothing wrong with the rest of the tomato, but get it off the vine. There's no reason to keep wasting energy on that bad tomato. If you can sell them two things, sell them the yield booster and the calcium nitrate. But if you sell them just calcium nitrate, they're going to go home, they're going to use it, and they're going to continue to have that problem. And 2 weeks are going to go by, or a week and a half is going to go by, and they're going to come in and say, hey, I'm still losing tomatoes. Well, it's going to take a little bit longer for that tomato plant to take up that calcium nitrate. And guys, that's why we tie the calcium to nitrogen. It's readily taken up by that plant, so it's always bringing in that calcium. It's going to take a little bit for it to stop that blossom end rot, where if they use the yield booster, it's going to stop it right then and there. And where do they spray the yield booster? On the entire plant. Foliage, tomato, everywhere. Get them to spray it on the entire plant. All right? Yes, Robert?
I had one experience. I don't know if it's true all the time, but I had that problem, and I used the yield booster, and I sprayed during the heat of the day, and I got some burn. So I would just recommend that you wait until just before it gets dark.
Early morning or late evening. I try never to spray anything on the foliage during the heat of the day. Yeah.
So.
All right, let's jump into fungus problems. Who can name a couple of fungus issues on tomato plants? What are some common fungus issues?
Early blight.
Early blight, late blight. What else, guys? Maybe a leaf spot, turning the leaves yellow. What's a really common one that coats the entire top of the leaf?
Powdery mildew.
Powdery mildew, absolutely. Okay, so for early blight and late blight, what would you guys recommend?
There's only one. There's only one.
What would you guys recommend for early blight or late blight? And actually leaf spot as well.
Broad spectrum.
Broad spectrum fungicide, absolutely. That's going to do a fantastic job. That's this product right here.
Chlorothianum.
Any other products? What about an organic? Anybody have any organic fungicides on their shelf that they would recommend for early blight or late blight? Anybody have copper soap? Copper soap is going to do just as good of a job as broad spectrum fungicide, except it's organic. Just as good of a job. Guys, I am not a pro-organic, pro-synthetic, I'm pro-results. And if I can give them the exact same results with an organic that they would get with a synthetic, especially in the vegetable garden, I'm going to go with the organic most likely. And I can kind of read the customer. Sometimes people think an organic might be weaker and not be as strong. Fine, you can go ahead and purchase the broad spectrum. That's why I've got some options for you. But I'm telling you, they're going to get just as good a results with copper soap as they would broad spectrum fungicide. The only one that I would recommend a different product is the powdery mildew. What's somebody's favorite product for powdery mildew? Does three things.
That's a hint, folks.
It's in the Fertilome line. It's a big seller. It's one of our top sellers. Guys, this is a really good product if somebody comes in and they're, sometimes you feel like a detective. You're trying to pull information out of them, and sometimes they're resistant. They don't want to tell you, well, I haven't watered it for a month. But, I don't know if it's got an insect, or I don't know if it has a disease, or, they're not really giving you information, and it kind of covers a little bit of everything. It covers three things.
Triple action.
Triple action, you got it. Guys, triple action is by far my favorite for powdery mildew. That is my go-to. Now, I'm not saying that copper soap and broad spectrum won't help take care of it, but if they only came in with powdery mildew and I want to sell them the best product, I want to sell them the thing that's going to knock it out faster than anything else and give them the best results, triple action would be my go-to. All right? It's an insecticide, fungicide, miticide. I'm not saying it's the best product for everything, but it's a good option if the customer wants to go home with the product, they don't want to leave your store without anything, and you just can't figure out what the issue is, or they're just not giving you that right information, triple action's a good one to go with. Yes?
So I've heard that the neem oil, which is the active ingredient, is better as a preventative than a cure.
Not really, because it's an oil. It's not going to stick around very long. For a preventative, in the vegetable garden, it's kind of tough because we have to stay away from systemics. I mean, triple action is a decent preventative for insects because the pyrethroid in it agitates those insects. What I really like it for also is like mealybugs. You know how mealybugs like to hide down in the crevices? You can spray triple action and you might not come into contact with those mealybugs, but that pyrethrin in there agitates them, gets them to crawl out of their crevices. So if the insects haven't landed, that pyrethroid on there will kind of keep those other insects from landing on there. So in that way, it will act as a preventative. But if you have powdery mildew, it does a great job at treating powdery mildew. Yeah. All right, so, and I made this one its own category, and guys, I could have all the tomato plants on the tables. I could be sitting there staring at that tomato plant, and until this thing moves, I would have never even noticed it. And you know who's really good at noticing it? Kids. Boy, I'd have kids come up, I found this on your tomato plant. Oh, where'd you find it? I'll give you a nickel for everyone you find out there. What'd you say? Tomato hornworms, absolutely. And guys, sometimes you'll have that customer that says, oh, I don't want to kill these. It's going to turn into a butterfly or a moth. What happens if you leave 1 or 2 tomato hornworms on a plant and you go to bed that night? It's not going to leave any of the plant left for you. It's going to munch that whole thing out and it's going to move on. What's a good way to get rid of tomato hornworms? What would you guys tell me to do? And maybe I'm a customer and I've done a little bit of research and I'm going to come in and I'm going to give you 2 initials. What are the 2 initials I'm going to say? I need a product that has BT in it. Absolutely. Guys, we've got BT Caterpillar Killer Spray. We've got it in a ready-to-use and a concentrate in the Natural Guard line that used to be called Thuracidin High Yield a couple of years ago, but we moved it into the Natural Guard line. What if I don't like liquids for some reason? I want to use a dust. What's the dust called? Dipel dust. Absolutely. So you've got a couple of options for me. You got it. All right, does anybody have a different product that's going to, so Dipel dust and BT Caterpillar Killer Spray are only going to kill things in the caterpillar family. All right, what's another product that's going to take care of caterpillars just as well as the BT, but it's going to do other listed insects? Anybody know the name? Spinosad, you got it. Absolutely. Spinosad's going to do fantastic. And what I really like about spinosad is a dead bacteria. It's going to get inside that leaf layer. It's not going to be able to be washed off like the Dipel dust or the BT. It's not going to break down in sunlight. And with it getting inside the leaf layer, there's 2 insects that I really like this product for getting rid of. Anybody ever have somebody bring in a leaf and it looks like it has tunnels all through it? Got leaf miners, absolutely. And I can spray malathion or triple action or any of these contact insecticides on that leaf, and unless that leaf miner comes out of that leaf, I'm never going to get rid of them. But if I spray spinosad and it gets inside the leaf layer, so don't confuse it with the systemic, it's a translaminate. It gets inside that leaf layer, I'm going to be able to control those leaf miners. What about anybody ever bring in maybe like the buds of roses and the buds are turning black and never opening and falling off? And you cut it open and there's insects inside that bud. What was that? Thrips? Absolutely. Another really good product for getting rid of thrips is spinosad. Guys, I had thrips on my roses at my garden center. I had a real bad infestation. I did 4 applications of malathion. Can you think of anything stronger or stinkier than malathion? Could not get the problem under control. 1 application of spinosad knocked it out. Because I had to get inside that bud. I had to get where those insects were feeding. All right, great example of a synthetic insecticide that's been around forever that was outperformed by a fairly new organic. I'm pro results. I want to get the best results possible. All right. What about other general insects? Any other insects that you guys have that customers are coming in and having issues with? I got $3 more. So, what's that?
White flies.
White flies. What would you recommend for white flies?